or a Bible app, go ahead and open up with me. We're going to be in James chapter 3. We're going to do our reading, and then we're going to just talk about what we read. It's kind of a short reading this morning, 13 to 18, so we only have a few verses that we're going to read, but we'll probably do a lot more talking about these. This is really encouraging section, really helpful section. Hope that you find a benefit from it. So let's read together. James chapter 3, let's pick up there in verse 13. He says, "Who is wise and understanding amongst you? Let him show by his good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, and demonic. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace." All right, let's just think about the first verse here. Let's just focus in on verse 13. Look what he says. "Who is wise and understanding about you?" Just stop right there. How many of us would want to raise our hands and say, "Oh, I'm wise, I'm understanding"? Would you admit to it? Would it be wise for you to admit to it? Well, this is a rhetorical question. And where the Bible speaks rhetorically, we have a tendency of just kind of, reading through it. Yeah, God, I know that's a rhetorical question. But we better pay attention, pay close attention when the Bible speaks that way. So here's how we'll know if who is wise and who is wise amongst us. Listen carefully. He says, "Let him show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom." What's so good about this question is that it looks to the fruit for the answer. It's similar to like James chapter 1, verse 23 or 26, where he says, "Who is religious amongst you?" Want to raise your hand for that one? Yeah, I'm religious. Well, no, you're not, he says, not unless you bridle your tongue and go and visit the orphans and the widows in their trouble and keep yourself unspotted from the world. It's all about the fruit of those who serve God. Like James 2, verse 14, where he says, "Who amongst us have faith?" Would you raise your hand for that? Yeah, I have faith. Well, he says, well, except that if you know me, if you know my life, if you've seen what I've done and what I've not done, then you'll know whether I have the fruit of righteousness. You'll know whether I have faith or not, because it's faith and works, not just faith. Faith alone is dead. And so here's what he says: "Who is wise and understanding amongst you? Let him show it." Don't just say it, let him show it. Wisdom is shown in good works done in a wise ways, like with meekness and gentleness, as he says here. Now, look at the next section. In verses 14 through 16, James gives us two very different choices of a pattern to live by, two very different ways to go about trying to be wise. And look at the first pattern. Number one, he talks about this earthly wisdom, and that it has a pattern of bitter envy and self-seeking. And so you can use that because it's used by a lot of people in the world. So here's how a lot of people make decisions. What am I going to get from this? I'm going to make this decision because this is what I want. And also, earthly wisdom is very powerful. Men and women who have ruled their world, gotten to the top of the ladder in their industry, have done that by using this template. I see what I want, therefore I'm going to take what I want. And that works because it is going to get you what you want. And people are going to look at you and they're going to think, wow, they're really wise. Look at what they gained here. But also, earthly wisdom is not from God because it's two very different sources. Look at what James says about it. It is earthly, meaning it's of earth or on earth or something from this planet. In other words, it's fleshly. It's also, secondly, it's sensual, meaning that it's unspiritual. It's sensual without a spiritual concept. We live based upon earthly principles, wisdom focused on the flesh and not beyond it. And also he says it's demonic. Now that's the one that makes me stop and go, whoa, wait a minute. It just means like the devil or like the demons. And so you could read the Bible about the demons and you could see how they respond to Jesus as he's casting them out. We don't know a lot about them, but we can see how demons operate, can't we? They are self-motivated. They act jealously. They reject authority. Those are the sources of this kind of wisdom. The templates are very different. The source is very different. And also, finally, earthly wisdom has a very different result than that of wisdom from above. Look what you're going to gain. You're going to gain money, power, and prestige. But at some point, what you're really going to get is confusion and every evil thing. You think that's true? Just imagine. Have you ever been in a work environment where everybody was out for themselves? Have you ever been in a family where everybody's envious of each other? Have you ever been in a church where everybody's focused on themselves and not others? Have you ever been in a nation where everybody rejects authority, everyone is divided? And what do you get out of all of that? You get war, there's division, lying, cheating, manipulating, gossip, backbiting, you name it. There's just all kinds of different horrible, awful, shameful, terrible, troubling things that are caused by living by that kind of wisdom. Now, look at the last part, because he goes from describing this earthly wisdom to the character of wisdom that's from above. And so notice where he starts. Wisdom that's from above is first pure. The first thing here. That's important. It's priority number one. First things first. Now, that's not how the world thinks about decisions. It's not how a lot of Christians think about decisions. Earthly wisdom is mostly concerned about man's things. What is this going to give me? Heavenly wisdom is more concerned about God's things. First thing we need to ask, is this consistent with what God has said is morally right and morally wrong? Does this compromise what God has said I should be doing? And think about some examples. Daniel was taken into captivity into Babylon, and he was given a lot of amazing things, some of the best food, some of the best drink. But it says in Daniel 1 verse 8, and Daniel made a lot of compromises, by the way. His name, Daniel made a compromise of his education, lots of different things. But when it came to what God had already said for them, when there was something that contradicted it, it says Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself. Daniel never compromised what God had said. Think about Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers because of jealousy, because they hated him. And he was put into the house of Potiphar and given charge over everything that he had, including his wife. And day into day, she tried to tempt him, trying to get him to lie with her. And day into day, Daniel said, how could I do this great wickedness against my God? Daniel every day was asking, is this pure? And the one day that she catches him in the house by himself, he flees as she holds on to his coat. And so Joseph was asking, is this pure? That was his first thing. So first, wisdom is first pure, and then it's peaceable. Purity comes first, peace comes second. And here's why that's so important, is because the world doesn't believe that. And in fact, there's a lot of Christians don't believe that either. Many of us think that we've got to sacrifice purity for the sake of peace. And don't get me wrong, being peaceable is important. It's on the list here. In fact, it comes second only to purity. Think about it. Did Jesus ever make a decision that was impure? Well, did Jesus ever do something that didn't cause peace? Jesus never did anything impure, but I seem to remember a time where Jesus made an entire nation grit their teeth, spit on him, and put him on a cross for doing what was right. There are times when being pure means we're going to be at peace with others, but there are times when being pure means we're not going to be at peace with others. Give me 1 second. My wife keeps trying to message me. Because heavenly wisdom is first pure, and then it's peaceable. And again, peaceable's next. Daniel drew the line at purity. He wasn't going to defile himself. But Daniel also requested of the chief priest that he might not defile himself. And he came to the head of the eunuchs, which said, hey, look, I could lose my head over this. But he proposed a very peaceful, respectful alternative with his boss, and he agreed to it, and it worked. And then wisdom from above is then gentle. And this word can also be translated considerate. I think it's a better translation here. In other words, that we're not only considering ourselves, we're also considering others. This is not, what am I going to get out of this? This is not what is in this for me, but what does this mean for other people? And that's a really difficult one for us because we're constantly focused on ourselves, and people around us have suffered because of it. But gentleness is something that we can learn to develop with the Spirit's help. Because in Galatians 5, it is a fruit of the Spirit. Also, wisdom from above is willing to yield. That's exactly the opposite of earthly wisdom, isn't it? I don't always have to get what I want. I don't always have to get my way. I'm not only just going to be thinking about myself, but it's not about me. It's not about my ways or my desires and what I want. It's also about others. Remember what Jesus taught in Matthew chapter 5. What did Jesus say we should be doing when someone slaps us on the right cheek? Give the left cheek. What should we do when somebody compels us to go 1 mile? We run a 2nd mile. Be reasonable, be willing to yield. Also, wisdom from above is full of mercy and good fruits. So what will it produce? Is it merciful? Is it gracious? Will this, will what I'm doing show people in my life that I'm thoughtful about them and that I'm forgiving? What is this going to produce in my life? Also, it's without partiality. Am I being fair to everybody that this decision involves? Don't we wish that people would make those kinds of decisions that way in our workplace or in our family or at our schools? How much better would your work be? How much better would the school be? Ever thought about that before? And then he says it's without hypocrisy. I think this is a hard one. This was related to the first one. Is it pure? But this goes deeper to that. Am I making sure that this isn't bound up in my selfish desires? Am I sincerely doing this out of love? Am I doing this for God? Am I doing this also for others? Am I making this decision based upon the fact it is good for God first and then for others who are around me? Am I being sincere about this and not hypocritical? Now look at verse 18. I want to just read verse 18 again. He says, now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Do you see the agricultural picture here? There's something about sowing and reaping, a seed that is sown, a fruit that is harvested. Can you think about a better thing to make our goal? To make peace in a world where there doesn't seem to be a lot of peace. Just watch the news. Look at Minneapolis and other places in this world. And so that's the fruit of righteous wisdom. We're to sow in peace. We're to reap it in peace. We're to make peace in this world where there is none. We're to help others who are in turmoil with God in their lives to help make peace with him. And there will be this harvest of righteousness. This is the goal of living by heavenly wisdom, by wisdom that's from above. That's what James is talking about here. Now, I love this section. There's so much helpful. This is a really good outline. If you're making a decision in life, this is a really good outline for you to start thinking about, how we can be more godly in our decisions, more heavenly focused in our decisions as we're trying to weed through things and figure out what's the best decisions to make. I appreciate your time, appreciate your attention. Glad that you were able to read with me today. Encourage you, don't just put it down, but pick it up today. Be thinking about it, be meditating on it, read it again for yourself, read through it a couple more times. And so I appreciate your time. Hope everybody has a great rest of their day. God bless everybody.